Kashtira just won a YCS, and not just one Kashtira deck, it was the 3v3 YCS in Las Vegas, and all three of the winners have been piloting Kashtira. And I'm here to talk about that, recap the event a little bit, and discuss the question, is Kashtira the best deck now, which is what everyone is afraid of, because I don't know a single person that enjoys Kashtira. But before we hop into the discussion and a little bit of a YCS Las Vegas event recap and what it means for going forward, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I think a lot of you are watching without being subscribed, and it would mean a lot to me if you showed your support for the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let us start and hop into the discussion. All right. YCS Las Vegas is over. It was a team YCS with almost 1,200 individual players, which means like 400 teams, resulting in 9 rounds of Swiss and a top 16 cut, with Steven Silverman, Dominic Couch, and Alexander Cancel coming out on top with a Kashtira deck, all on the same deck. I do think they are all on the same list. It looked like that in the feature matches. We don't have a deck profile from them yet, and I'm also, once again, I'm referring to the amazing Septo spreadsheet here. Link to that is going to be in the description below, where it compiles a lot of recent event results and deck lists and deck profile and so on and so forth. It's a great resource. Shouts out. Kashtira, as you can see, not only won the event, but also was the most represented deck here in the top 8 breakdown, and also with combined event tops for this first weekend from everything we have so far. Why did Kashtira win this event when it was what everyone deemed to be so counterable? I was one of the people that told you this deck is counterable, and I don't think it has what it takes to be a tier 0 deck, and I stand by that statement. I don't think Kashtira is a tier 0 deck, but it has a couple of advantages that I think drove it to win this event, especially in the early stages of the format, because Kashtira has a lot of advantages when it comes to a wide field, right? When everyone is not sure what to play yet in this new upcoming format, Kashtira is great at handling that, because while it is possible to prepare specifically for Kashtira with tech cards, which we're going to talk about in a bit, if the format is very, very diverse, people are not going to really do that, right? People are not really able to put a lot of cards into their main deck designated at beating Kashtira if it's not just Kashtira you have to worry about, which I feel like in this early first event of the format, people really didn't know what to expect. People really didn't expect it to be as many Kashtiras in Top Cut, me included. I was one of the people who thought like Kashtira was going to be good. Kashtira was going to be something that a lot of people play. I didn't expect it to take up like almost half of Top Cut. I didn't expect that. In hindsight, it does make sense, because it feels like people weren't really focusing on Kashtira enough in their deck lists. People have been using cards like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, for example, because it is really good against Branded, which is the second most represented deck, right? But Ash Blossom is a card that against Kashtira, while it's not terrible, it's not dead in your hand. It's not a very good card. Like, that's not one. It's not nearly as good as a card like a Nibiru, a Book of Eclipse, or any of the other board breaker tech cards that people have been praising as the solution to Kashtira. Well, turns out if you have to play Ash Blossom versus Branded and whatever cards into other matchups, then these outs are going to fall short. And one other thing, the second most biggest reason as to why Kashtira was so successful is that I feel like people underestimated, once again, me included, the ability of Kashtira players to adapt their deck to the cards that people are playing to beat Kashtira, right? Because throughout the entire stream, I really only saw 3 or 4 different cards aimed at really beating Kashtira, and that was Lava Golem and Sphere Mode sometimes, Nibiru, and Book of Eclipse. That's what people have been doing. For the most part, we've talked about a lot of different outs that you can play against Kashtira, but these 4, it's 3 because Sphere Mode and Lava Golem are like the same concept. Basically 3 different approaches at beating Kashtira. That's all that people have been doing. And for the most part, people have only been doing like 1 or 2 of these, not even all 3, right? And so one card that popped up and saw a lot of success, I think all 3 winners played it, and I also saw like Ryan Levine, Bone Temnik, and Nishad play them in top 16 triple Kashtira lineup. Forbidden Lands. Forbidden Lands popped up in a lot of Kashtira lists because that outs Book of Eclipse, and it outs talents to take if you only have 1 monster. And then another approach that Kashtira players have been doing, also I saw that, shoutouts to the Ryan Levine, Bowden, and Nishad deck profile. I watched that, it was very insightful. They've been mixing up the combo a little bit and didn't go for the full combo line that locks a bunch of zones and puts up multiple monsters. They decided that if they didn't have any info on their opponent's deck, they would simply go for a 3 material Arise Heart with 4 summons. playing around Sphere Mode, Lava Golem, and Nibiru all in one, just by going for a slightly different combo line, and still ending on an Arise Art, 3 materials, Macrocosmos, and Banish. So basically the ability to outplay certain outs with a Kashtira deck. I'm going to throw up the list of Ryan, Bowden, and Ishad here because they all played the same deck, and the first place list isn't out here as a reference point. This is what they played, and as you can see, this deck has a lot of room to play basically counters to the counters, right? You play Forbidden Lands, you can play Ibli and side decks to prepare for if everyone's doing Nibiru Lava Golem, Ibli wins. It's very flexible, and that's, I think, why it won the event. So the first reason was the format was very diverse, and I think Kashtira does very well in a diverse format because it is a very strong deck, and people have not really been able to focus on it due to so many other decks in the metagame. And the second reason is the people that did well with the deck went really smart about, like, countering the outs, basically, that exist to Kashtira by including cards like Forbidden Lands, Ibli, and making certain lines of play that don't play into Lava Golem, Sphere Mode, Nibiru, so on and so forth. What does this mean going forward? Does this mean that Kashtira is just the best deck because it's like pretty flexible and apparently it can play around some of the outs? I personally still don't think so. I don't think Kashtira can ever be a tier 0 deck because really the solution to people playing Forbidden Lands, people playing around Nibiru, people playing around Sphere Mode is to just have multiple outs in your deck, right? Not put all eggs into one basket, not just play Book of Eclipse and Book of Moon and hope that that's enough, because one other thing is like sometimes, as we also saw in the finals, they don't always go for the three material Arise Heart and play around Sphere Mode, Nibiru, Lava Golem. Sometimes they do this. Sometimes they lock all 5 zones, which we saw in Game 1 and Game 3 of the finals. Even after Dominic Couch saw the Nibiru in John's deck in Game 2, decided to go for this line in Game 3 again, just didn't get Nibiru, right? But your only way to really hedge for this is to have as many outs as possible, right? That's the really annoying part, is having to have an out for if they play around Lava Golem and Sphere Mode and Nibiru, I have to have a solution for that. If they lock all my spell and trap zones, I also need a solution for that. We're really gonna have to like bite the bullet and play all the outs essentially, right? Like we have to be able to out all the different scenarios that Kashtira plays, which means that Kashtira will be forced to be reckoned with in this upcoming format, because if you ever make the right meta call with Kashtira and you call the outs that people are going to use correctly, you're going to have success with it, I believe. But on the other hand, if you are on the other side of the coin, if you go with a deck that isn't Kashtira, or if you're trying to counter Kashtira, and you make these correct calls on like, okay, they're playing Forbidden Lands right now, so I'm not going to commit to Book of Eclipse. I'm rather going to play like, I don't know, Lava Golem. Kaijus is another thing that I saw, which is the mono Arise Heart is really weak to Kaijus. And if people rely on Ibli to prevent stuff like Kaiju and Lava Golem, playing a deck that can fit 2 Linguribus, for example, could be a very, very key solution to that. Either if you are playing Kashtira or if you're not playing Kashtira, staying ahead of the curve is going to be very important. And that is also what my conclusion kind of is to this entire thing. I am worried about Kashtira now a little bit more than before. I will have to admit, maybe I took it a little bit too lightly, because people came up with a couple of very, very interesting solutions to Kashtira being so easily outable. I will give it to them. That was good. I think there was some nice innovation here to make sure that the Kashtira decks would still stay on top, even if people did draw one or the other out. I think decks are particularly well positioned moving forward if they can fit a decent number of non-engine into their deck. This is also another reason, another small reason as to why I think Kashtira was very successful, is I think a lot of people played Branded. And I want to say one thing, I love Branded, but Branded is not the best deck to combat Kashtira, for the very simple reason that Branded is a deck that works mostly based on its engine. It is mostly based on engine, and it relies on the fact that it hopes that its engine is better than the other deck's engines, right? It tries to go head to head, which is why you usually see Despia decks with like 40 to 45 cards packed with engine, almost no non-engine in there. And I don't think that's a good way to play against Kashtira, because, as I said before, you need as many outs and as many non-engine answers as possible to Kashtira. Like, you want to play a couple of the impactful spell cards because they're really good, but you also need to pair it up with something that prevents them from locking all your spell and trap zones. So that requires you to play a decent amount of non-engine, like 9 to 12 to 15 non-engine cards post-side. You don't have to do it main deck. Like, maining, it's probably fine to play less, but after siding for Kashtira in this format, you're going to want to have like 12 to 15, maybe even more answers to like Kashtira going second. And Branded can't do that. Branded simply cannot do that. Branded relies way too much on engine hands to be able to fit all that. And I think the Branded usage is going to go down, because if the meta continues to be like this, I believe that Branded is not a very good pick. Now, decks that can fit a lot of non-engine are something like Sprite variations, which were like criminally underrepresented at this YCS, I feel like. I mean, I might be biased. I love Sprite. I'm going to try and tinker around with in this week's stream. I mean, you know, feel free to check out the link in the description down below. I think Sprite has good potential because this is one of the decks that can fit non-engine. Another deck that also had a very good breakout performance was Labyrinth. Labyrinth, the third most represented deck in top 8. 4 decks out of the top 8, which, I mean, 24 decks in top 8 because it was a 3v3 YCS, but still 4 Labyrinth decks in top 8, including shoutouts to Ryan Yu for taking the deck all the way until the finals and actually going undefeated all the way through. All the way through Swiss and Top Cut. Ryan Yu didn't lose a single match, beat 8 Kashtiras, and took Labyrinth all the way into the finals. Unfortunately, both of his teammates were playing Despia and both lost to Kashtira in the finals. So that's how they lost. So Ryan Yu won the finals, I think, and still lost the YCS, so unfortunate. But Labyrinth was also a very good showing because that deck is actually quite strong against Kashtira. Of course, it struggles if they know you're playing Labyrinth and they can lock your entire back row. You need cards that like solve that, like Lava Golem and Sphere Mode and whatnot. But overall, I think Labyrinth is a very good call to beat Kashtira as well. So overall, we are looking at a format where I think it is fine to be worried about Kashtira now. I think it is fine to be a little bit worried about Kashtira, but I still don't think this YCS is the end-all, be-all for this upcoming format. I don't think this is the death sentence for the upcoming metagame. It's going to be horrible. We're all going to have to play Kashtira mirror matches. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think innovation is dead after the first event of the format. I think there is a lot to be explored. I think as soon as the Branded decks step down a little bit, the Labyrinth decks and the Sprite decks and whatnot, they are on the come up, in my opinion, the non-engine decks. I think there's a lot of innovation to be done against Kashtira because people haven't really been trying anything. People have been doing Book of Eclipse, Nibiru, Lava Golem, that's it. And I think there's a lot more to be done in that direction. And I think it's going to be fun. It reminds me a little bit of when Zodiac was perceived to be the best deck, or when it was the best deck arguably and like the most played deck for sure. And then you would be able to counter it with strategies like Paleo, where it was just like a deck that just beats Zodiac because Zodiac was very strong, but it wasn't like the end-all be-all solution tier 0 deck that everyone thought it was. You guys know I was a fan of that format, so we're gonna see what we can come up with in this format. I'm still looking forward to it. Despite me not liking Kashtira, let that be a word of hope. I'm still looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to preparing for YCS London, and I see a lot of potential things that are to be improved on these first results of the YCS, and I'm really looking forward to coming up with something for YCS London. I think that is the big pro of this last Forbidden Unlimited list, is that with Tearlament out of the format, deck building is finally a thing again, even if Kashtira for now looks like it's going to be the most represented deck, at least for the couple next events in the near future. But still, I hope that gave you a little bit of insight at what happened at the YCS, why Kashtira did as well as it did, and as to maybe why that doesn't mean it's going to be the best deck throughout the entirety of the format. If you thought this was a little bit of an insightful discussion, I recorded this one off stream, just like a little bit of bonus input on the YCS. If you appreciate that type of content, let me know in the description down below. And like I said in the beginning, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and checked out the Twitch link in the description down below. Without further ado, hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you for watching, and peace.